So on the agenda, we've got a questions and answers session now, haven't we?
I can go through some of the chat function if you like, Andrew, and some of the questions raised. So I think Paddy did raise the question. She asked Vino, how could a cluster help you with the presentation he did, and what support do you need to get you to the next stage?
Yeah, thank you. I think the key aspect that disulfide at least is looking for is the next stage investment. So there is a risk that the company may not exist in the later part of next year. We have developed a proof of concept, and now we want to go into phase 1 clinical trials. For that, we have to do safety, toxicology, and key pharmacokinetic studies, which is essential to submit as a package to the EMA or the FDA or the MHRA. So we are developing towards that clinical package, and we are looking to raise at least another 500K to $1 million for us to take us through that stage, because all these studies have to be done in animal models, in a CRO setting, in an MHRA approved setting. So it can't be done in an academic setting, and they are quite expensive. It's mostly to do with the animal work that has to be done.
Okay. It's interesting you highlight this, but it's the second stage investment, not the proof of concept, because actually that's come back to us from several companies that actually there's plenty of proof of concept money, and there's the investors tell me there's lots of. So I think that's one of the things that we should look for the cluster to do, is to try and support organizations at that second stage, and where they connect them to the proof of concept where there is an opportunity to do so, but actually we have a gap. Has it gone?
No, you're still there. We can hear you, and that's a good point. So I think there was another question from Jacqueline Pugh. He said, will we be uploading the recording of the video? And we will do. I'll be chopping up the presentation. So
oh, can you hear me? All right, okay. I'm frantically typing and asking David.
Yeah. So we will be, in response to Jacqueline, uploading segments of the recording onto YouTube, and I'll announce that once it's done and send it around by social media and via email. And then Gina's asked a question, will the cluster consider sustainability in the green agenda in improving processes and supply chains? Very good question, Gina. My response to that is I'm working a lot with WM5G, which is the organisation set up to look at test beds of 5G across the region in the West Midlands, and they've also looked at the sustainability aspect. And this is something maybe we can raise to them to see if new technology could potentially, do anything around the area of sustainability in the green agenda in processes and supply chains. So I think it's an area that there's a lot of interest in currently at the moment, especially with lockdown and everything else. So that is being looked at, and it's something maybe we could contribute to, or maybe even have an input in setting up meetings to look at that future. Look at that in the future.
At the university we had, and again Gary, you might need to help me out here because it's an acronym I always forget, but we had a group that were looking at this, that were looking to sort of help businesses improve their sustainability, and they would actually go into companies, into businesses, and to look at processes that they wanted to improve, and they would help them with that. And I think this is a great opportunity to do more of that really across the region. So I think definitely something worth looking at.
Definitely. And I know the growth hubs in the region have come together under one West Midlands banner as well. So there's a committee there, and they obviously work with business champions from the local authorities in the Black Country, for example, as well. So that's something I think we'd need to engage with them, especially as they go out and visit businesses as well. So it could be a one-stop shop. Instead of having multiple visits to SMEs, that one person could then assess what their needs are, businesses, and then obviously refer them to the appropriate stakeholder to help them. Paddy had some difficulties. I think she's going to try and ring in. It's a shame with connectivity, but that always happens. Any more questions on any of the presentations raised, and any questions you may have?
I think what we've just seen with the audio issue is the vital importance of getting the infrastructure right for successful cluster development. I think looking back on the work that Paddy and I and others have done on this in the past, Some cluster initiatives break down because they only address one part of the picture. You need the you need the skills supply, you need the infrastructure, whether it's physical or digital. You need the information flow, as well as, of course, the money. And I think a key to success here will be getting all those elements in place in an integrated whole, accessible through, as you rightly say, a one-stop shop. And that, I think, will give us a success we're after.
Okay. Any more questions? I think Andrew Short was talking about some of the work he'll be doing around this. That's his plan to when working with businesses. And I certainly agree. I think our landscape here, the life sciences landscape, would look very much different if we had the equivalent of a Jaguar Land Rover for life sciences situated in the region. So, you know, our prominence and whatever we can do to attract further inward investment may change, you know, the whole of the sector there. So inward investment is something certainly we can look at. Another question coming in from Laura Gelder. Very interesting, Gina, especially in light of the new president of the ICE, the Institute of Civil Engineers, inauguration speech yesterday in Shaping Zero. They will be focusing on reducing carbon emissions and pointing funding colours towards at a national level. So she's put a link there. And certainly I think lockdown has shown how the air has improved in many parts of the country. You know, birds and butterflies came back. So this you know, focus on bringing down congestion is going to continue. And I think it's a great thing that does. Any other questions on the presentations raised?
I think it might be interesting to hear if people have any further comments, people from outside the university sector, as to how you see the university's contribution and where perhaps we're not doing as well as we should be. So any thoughts on that?
Got one thought. I'm kind of a random outlier in this group because I work in innovation consultancy, but I'm married to a patent attorney in life sciences. And certainly when you look at the UK, I agree, you tend to think Oxford, Cambridge and London, but we sit in Cheltenham, so we're not a million miles away, and it's really interesting to hear about what's going on and how you build that up. But I was having a chat yesterday with one of my consultant buddies who's based in Zurich, and he runs the Swiss British Chamber of Commerce, and they've certainly been trying to look at how to more effectively connect people, large and small. Obviously they have a massive life sciences presence out in Zurich as well, and they've been running kind of virtual apropos, so almost like a kind of not speed dating exactly, but they've been finding ways to split them into little breakout groups around specific themes quite cleverly, and engaging people in different ways. And I just wonder, I don't know how you connect at the moment, but the world I live in is all about kind of, it's very relational and systems based. So how can you connect different parts of the system? How can we start to build really meaningful ecosystems? And I'm part of my local growth hub, so that's a very natural little ecosystem, isn't it? But I guess understanding more about how universities kind of plug into business, because I tend to focus more in business and social enterprise, and I have less conscious awareness of exactly what the universities are up to. So it's really interesting just to listen and to hear how the spin outs are kind of moving out into business, because that's not a world I normally play in, and it feels like there's a kind of missing in the ecosystems that I play in, that are kind of connecting in lots of innovative, interesting ways. And I'm not quite sure what that means, but I'm just kind of dipping into different pools and going, oh, that's really interesting. You know, I can join those dots differently. That person would probably have a really rich conversation with this other person. So I don't know if that's helpful at all.
No, that's very helpful indeed. And I think this has been raised in the past about having sight of opportunities in the region. And other sectors may have, I don't know, top 50 innovators or top 50 leaders, top 50 innovations in, say, automotive for a second, you know, for example. And I think if we could do something similar for our cluster And I think people have mentioned, I mean, often we don't even hear about the great work taking place in our own local area. I recently learned about a lot of the work taking place at the Royal Hospital Wolverhampton Trust, and you know, I was stunned at the many different innovations taking place at the University of Wolverhampton as well. And so as we're developing our website, and something to keep in mind in the future is maybe we could have like the top 50 innovations in the West Midlands, or ones to watch, you know, hot to trot or something, you know, so anybody coming in could say what's happening, you know, oh, you know, great, University Wolverhampton's got a new drug that they're trialing in different areas, and that could be a way of you know, promoting that information to the wider region.
And especially with COVID at the moment, the fact that you're developing a swab, I mean, what person, we briefly did a test a couple of months ago, trying to get a nasal swab into my 3-year-old was just like, you're having a laugh. So just to know that you're current, that you're working on things that are really pertinent and fresh, and you know, to have that, the fact that the whole nation is pointed and the whole world is kind of interested in that topic, and you guys are actively part of it, I think it's such great news to share.
Mm-hmm. Totally agree.
I think one comment I'd like to pick up on that Laura just made was about the speed dating, and I think that's resonating with me a little bit. When I've been trying to get involved with European contracts, one of the things they do very nicely is that you can put up an interest, an expression of interest, and do partner searches. And I think we miss out on a lot of funding opportunities that become advertised to us because we're rummaging around trying to search for partners left, right, and centre. And actually, if we had some kind of mechanism through this this hub to bring people together. So a business identifies a funding opportunity and needs that academic partner. They don't necessarily know where to go looking. Likewise, we on the other side, we get information about UK RI grants, etc., and requiring business partners. And again, we don't necessarily have them on our doorstep. So I think there is perhaps a little bit of work that could be done around that, pairing people up and getting you know, bringing more either European or even British funding into the region that way.
I agree, Gary. And one thing I found, having tried to set up summits in the past, it can be incredibly difficult to find a venue, the funding required, audiovisual equipment, and then even getting businesses to come out to a local event can be a struggle, especially when they've got work to do. And one thing to come out of the pandemic is that we've realised that technology, provided you've got the connectivity, can actually work. And so it could save time, energy, money, resources to do this online speed dating event, or meet the funder, you know, showcasing local SMEs, giving them, you know, a minute or 2 minutes each can be done. And I think that's going to be the way of the future, really, because I remember last year trying to set up physical events, and, you know, awful amounts of money were spent. And I remember going to an international conference, and it must have cost thousands really to attend. And the reality is now you can actually view content from home, provided you got the connectivity. So that's something I think that's going to develop, and it's something we could certainly look at.
I'm also really interested in where you cross into slightly different sectors, where you might, you know, when I think about life sciences, it's almost more interesting to clash them with a slightly different world. So like even clashing sustainability with life sciences, you can have a more interesting conversation because it's not the expected conversation. There's some intrigue. When I think about things that cut through all the noise at the moment, it's the slightly unusual, unexpected partnerships and conversations that are really capturing people's imagination. And you know, you've got some terrific people. Like, you know, I could happily listen to Bino and Aaron all day, but you could imagine putting a really eclectic mix of people together and giving them a little challenge to solve or something, and promoting or facilitating new conversations and connections in that way, maybe.
I think that's where the strength of the CERC and Smart Concepts projects comes in, because it draws on, particularly within Wolverhampton University, on a number of schools within and in different faculties. And so my own school, I head the School of Sciences. I've got biomedical science and biology, which fit very nicely within this hub. But then I've also got the chemists and the physicists, which not necessarily the right, you know, it wouldn't automatically spring to mind, but it can propagate those conversations and take things in new directions. within the faculty, we've got maths and computing and a huge cybersecurity investment. And so there's ideas around big data, working our way through medical data in more efficient ways, etc., etc. So in fact, there's a lot of cross-pollination just within the university. But I think if we were to broaden this out even further, there's just so much more that we could accomplish.
Fantastic. And just before I invite David Brand to summarise, I know Darren Clark, you've had your hand up for a while. Did you want to ask a question? And this will probably be the final question.
Yeah, well, there's a few things I just wanted to comment on, really, Ravi. I guess on that last one around bringing people together, something that Medilink has done very successfully, particularly in the East Midlands, is around special interest groups. So it's bringing people together around a theme, but from diverse backgrounds across business, academia and clinical. And to Laura's point, as part of that, we do that across different sectors as well. So working with the Aerospace Alliance, working with the High Performance Cluster down in Silverstone, working with the Rail Forum. So where you're bringing different industries together. But my main feel, and I know Paddy and David do know this, that I think the real value from a cluster point of view will really be around two things. One is around that finance activity. BioCity have done some really good research work around this and looking at research power of universities and the investment and the spin-outs created. Birmingham comes out really strongly, as does Nottingham, but the amount of investment going in is really poor. So anything we can do to improve that investment, and I think to Vino's point about it does tend to be that second level investment. And my second one is around the advocacy and politicians. So yesterday I was in a meeting with UHB and a group of local suppliers who have stepped forward to provide PPE to the trust. So that was a group that Medilink created in support of the AHSN. It's now hit roadblocks because UHB aren't allowed to procure locally anymore. So whilst they've been supplying and getting really high quality products, they've been told they have to do it from a central point of view, and they're saying they don't get the level of equipment they need, and they don't get the quality they need. Whereas there's a group locally that have upsourced. A number of them didn't furlough people because they had an opportunity here. And what it really is political engagement. So absolutely, if we can create an advocate for the region, get that political engagement, if that's something the cluster can do, that those two things I think will be the key things for the cluster. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Darren. Really clear. Thank you.
David, would you like to close?
Well, thank you for that. And Darren, in the last sort of 30 seconds, you've raised a number of issues which we could spend several hours debating, but very important ones. So thank you for that. I think, though, in closing, what we have seen is that the health tech cluster can provide real benefits to the region and to individual organisations within it. To me, the key word is connectivity, not only in the sort of digital sense, but in terms of connecting across sectors, connecting to funding opportunities, and connecting across a network of professional services of all types that the businesses will need to draw on. I think we've seen the examples of the important role that universities can play, and I'm sure we can have equally fascinating examples from the other universities in the West Midlands. And of course, not only in providing technology, but in providing the pipeline of skilled people without whom no innovation is ever going to happen. And I think we get this right, we can raise the profile of the sector of the West Midlands. I had the privilege some years ago of serving on the board of Advantage West Midlands, our former regional development agency. We always used to lament that the West Midlands is really not very good at blowing our own trumpet. And I think what we've seen this morning is an opportunity to rectify that and bring the benefits that we have every chance of achieving. So thank you from the university for all of you for taking part. Please do continue the debates, feed in the ideas. You've had, I think in the chat, Paddy's and David Kidney's contact details, and let's hope that we can see great things happening. So thank you very much, everyone.